Light baking. Okay, so today I'm finally doing the light baking video. As you can see in the background, you can do some really cool stuff with this. Let's begin. First, let's open Blender and import our model as always. Next, let's go into the shading tab because we have a little bit of setup to do here. In rendering properties, go to render engine, cycles, and GPU compute. This will let Blender know to use our GPU as our renderer. Now, however this is grayed out, you're going to want to go to Edit, Preferences, and then System. Here you can set your GPU. For NVIDIA, set it to CUDA or Optics. For AMD and Intel respectively, set it to HIP or One API. Next, let's switch into our viewport shading mode up the top here. Let's switch our render path to Diffuse Direct, uncheck Scene Lighting, and uncheck Scene Weld, and then let's set all these values here to 0. Next, let's go into the Weld Properties tab, and let's set our background color to black. Alright, back in our Rendering Properties tab, let's set some new settings. Big disclaimer here, these are just settings that I found and they work best for me. I actually have no clue what some of these settings do, but the resulting maps do seem to come out cleaner when I use them. But feel free to play around with them. Okay, first, noise threshold off. Next, let's drop down our light paths, max bounces, and then set our total to 1 and the rest of them to 0. For our clamping, let's also set our direct and indirect light to 0. Next, let's disable caustics, set filter glossy to 0, and unchecked reflective and refractive. Now let's drop down our baking tab. Here, we're going to first set our bake type to diffuse, and then let's uncheck everything but direct. Okay, that should be our settings done. We're going to be making some permanent changes to this model, so don't re-import this back into your project. We're just using it to export our light maps. Firstly, you're going to want to delete everything that you're not baking emissions from. It is important that you do delete these because for some reason hiding them doesn't seem to work. Next, I'm going to remove the materials from everything left over, and then I'm going to add one material back so we can have a clean slate to work with. Back in the shading tab, everything should be completely black. Find the mesh that you want to use to emiss, and then select it. In the material properties, let's turn up our emission here by changing the color to white. You can also set the color to whatever you want if you want to bake out a colored map. I want this color to glow, but I really don't want this bottom part, so I'm just going to delete it. Quick note, if you want to apply an emission map, you can do so down here. Just go emission, image texture, and then select whatever map you want. Okay, we're almost ready to bake. We just have to define an output for our texture first. To do that, select the mesh that you want your lighting to be on. For this one, it's just going to be the main body. If your lighting falls onto more than one mesh, you're going to have to bake a map for each of these, but for now, just pick one of them. Next, we're going to go into our node editor here, and we're going to go add, texture, image. Make it 4K, and then make sure it's black, and uncheck alpha. In our view window to the left here, if we drop down this, we can now see that our texture is here. Okay, finally, you can hit bake. Once it's done, we can import it into our project. Just click this little arrow here, go image, save. Unfortunately, we're not done just yet. We still need to clean up these emission maps just a little bit. If we're trying to use these maps in this state, you'll notice they look kind of bad. They're super compressed and they're blocky. If you select your emission map, you'll see that all these settings pop up. We're going to set it down to 1K, but we're also going to set our compression quality to high. Much better. I actually haven't baked out the face mesh just yet, so let me go do that. A couple things I do want to point out just before I wrap this up is that these light rays go a lot further than these maps let on. If I turn up the emission, you can really see just how far these go. And it is a pretty easy fix in Photoshop by using the levels modifier. Also, sometimes when adding an emission to a mesh, it doesn't look very good. But the great thing is that emissive objects are only limited by your creativity. For instance, I can use this torus instead of a necklace to get a much more even light spread. But yeah, that's about all.